Hey guys, and welcome to the Sony Film Simulation community. This will be an in-depth tutorial on how to use Sony Film Simulations, how to expose them, how to use the temperature and the color filter to achieve different film looks. And overall, I just want to show you how to get better color out of the Sony system only using the picture profile menu, because it's a really powerful menu which after you learn the specifics of it, you'll understand how many possibilities they open up for you. If you're not familiar with Sony Film Simulation Recipes, it's a personal project that I've been working on for the past 2 years, and they are customized picture profile settings that are meant to give you better color out of your camera for both video mode and photo mode. You can find all Sony Film Simulation recipes on my website, link in the description down below. So I want to show you how to set up the picture profiles inside the camera, but before that I want you to search if your camera model is compatible with the picture profiles, more exactly if it has picture profiles, because most hybrid models have it, but for example, the A7R and the A9 does not have this function or feature, because these camera models are more focused on the photo mode, no video mode. So the thing with Sony Film Simulations is they're based off the picture profile menu, which was initially meant only for video, but Sony enables us to use it for the photo mode as well, as long as we shoot RAW plus JPEG, and the Sony Film Simulation recipes will be embedded into the JPEG. So as long as you shoot RAW plus JPEG, you will be able to use them for both video and photos. This will help people to cut down the editing process in most cases, and just enhance the experience of shooting with the camera in the moment. Also, using Sony Film Simulations, it just enhances your experience while in a photo shoot or a video shoot. When you show your model how the footage look like straight out of camera, it's just a much nicer experience to have great colors on the back of the screen, and when you transfer them on your computer to be able to use them as a reference, so people don't think like, oh, the colors are yucky and you're the photographer, so they kind of associate those colors with you. So it's just really important to get great colors out of the camera, even if you edit 14-bit RAW files. If you want to hear a little bit of a backstory on how I started this project, it will be a pretty long video, then just let it roll. If not, then I prepared chapters so you can find the information that you're looking for in the timeline down below. So go ahead and just look for the information that is of most interest for you. So how all this started is that about 2 years ago, Fuji announced their film simulation cameras and recipes and everything, and I was super excited about that because I really love analog and shooting film, and the idea of getting great pictures and analog like colors out of the camera, that really got me excited, because it just enhances the experience of if you shoot like street photography, whatever, you just have really like quirky, cool, interesting colors out of the camera, like wow, it just makes you feel inspired and keeps you going, and about 2 years ago in January in 2020, I think, I tested the Fuji, which has a lot of one of my favorites, which is the Classic Neck, which is probably one of the best film simulations from Fuji, subjectively speaking, but the idea is I was kind of disappointed when I actually tested the camera, because what I felt is that the film simulations work more working more on saturation and contrast, just like regular picture profiles, like let's say vivid, portrait, nature, nighttime, like picture profiles which any camera has, like Nikon, Canon, even Sony. And it felt like while dialing in different film recipes, it felt like they're working more on, the only difference between them was the saturation and the contrast. So I felt like, hey, I can create these kind of stuff inside Sony, because I already started working with the picture profile menu, and I knew it had so many color modes and so many options and features on adjusting contrast, colors, very in-depth. And I said, okay, let me try to create a couple film simulations for Sony cameras, and the intention was to create them for myself so I can cut down the editing process and the color correction, because I also felt like Sony colors are not bad, but they're not great either. They're kind of like, you know, meh, like, okay, it's there. In a way, they're very accurate, I would say. Sometimes they're kind of yucky, but in most of the cases I feel like they're a little bit too accurate in real life. And accurate colors, I don't know if you noticed, but accurate colors are not always the most pleasant colors. They're not the colors that we want to see or we enjoy to see. So I just wanted to create a couple picture profiles that I can use for photos and videos. I noticed I can, you know, use the picture profiles for photos as well, and they will be embedded in the JPEG, and that, you know, kind of started to save me a lot of time and got me excited that, okay, I can create picture profiles that will actually cut down the editing process in situations when I don't want to edit the pictures. 7 months later, I came up with 8 picture profiles, and they came out so good that I decided I want to share them with everybody else for free. And I started making a video for it, which took me about 5 months to create. It's one of my best videos, and it kind of like skyrocketed after I posted it 1 year ago. And you know, like, that was when everything started. Like, people asked me if I can copy the classic chrome, the Kodak Chrome 64 from Fuji, the Fuji Eterna, and honestly I didn't know if I can do this, because even though you had so many options inside the camera and you can achieve so many looks with the picture profiles, copying an exact look of a camera seemed pretty impossible, because you need more refined adjustments and tools like you would find in DaVinci Resolve, color grading tab, or Premiere Pro, Final Cut, you know, like individual color channel, hue, saturation, luma, customization. So I didn't know if I can copy those film simulations, but I tried anyways, and in the end, I found out that I could copy, you know, like multiple film simulations from Fuji cameras. And actually, I had so much control inside the picture profile menu. I copied the Fuji Eterna. It's a high fidelity copy. I have a low fidelity copy, which is for people who don't have a Hilo G gamma. And I have a high fidelity copy for those who have the Hilo G gamma. And I would say it's about 90 to 95% accurate to the Fujifilm. After I also made a comparison test. You can go to my channel and check it out. I copied the classic chrome. I tried to copy the Kodak Chrome, but I didn't try to copy. After I checked the Kodak Chrome 64 from Fuji, I felt, and after I made some research on how the Kodak Chrome 64 looked like back in the day, because now discontinued, I felt like the Fuji wasn't really trying to, or wasn't replicating the look of the Kodak Chrome 64. So I just went on a different path and made a Sony Film Simulation that actually tried to replicate and emulate the colors and the feeling of the original Kodak Chrome 64. So the idea is I copied a couple picture profiles from Fuji with really high fidelity and, you know, color accuracy. And besides that, I created a total of 32 Sony Film Simulations in 1 year. So in 2 weeks, it's gonna be 1 year since the original Sony Film Simulation video. I will put the link up here if you want to watch it for later. And you know, I really do appreciate all your support. And this was a really interesting project, and it's still an interesting project because I will keep on working on them, and I keep on updating the profiles every month or every couple of months. To ensure better color renditions and better color fidelity for each profile. So that is the story. Hopefully it was not boring for you guys. It's a little bit long, but I try to shorten it as much as possible. This is the first time I'm actually talking off script, so I might be, you know, blabbering a lot. Hopefully it's not too boring. But I said, okay, I need to get used to, because I wrote a script which is like 10 pages, and I was like, okay, I can't learn this, I can't memorize this because it's just too much. So I gotta try to speak free flow. So when shooting Sony film simulations, I usually shoot RAW plus JPEG, as I mentioned, and that is because film simulations will be baked in the JPEG but not in the RAW. Most of the times I will use the JPEG straight out of the camera, unless I have a really good shot that I want to print or use in my portfolio, in which case I will take the extra time and the extra hours to edit it in Capture One, because I want to ensure everything looks exactly how I want it to look like. And of course, in Capture One or in any video or photo editing software, you have more control than in camera. We'll talk about this later in the video as well, what I would like to see in newer Sony models. But of course, you have more features, more tools, and I can finally adjust each color and sit multiple hours to edit a single shot to make it look as perfect as possible, because I'm also a perfectionist, and sometimes when I print something, I want it to look as good as possible. So yeah, I will use the 14-bit RAW footage because of course it has an advantage to JPEG files. But if you shoot every day 500, 1000 pictures, it will take a lot of time to edit all those shots, and it's just useful to have great colors out of the camera and just use the JPEGs, so I don't spend 4 hours editing all those shots which could be done from inside the camera. So how to access the picture profile menu. So this may differ from one camera model to another, but most of the times Sony cameras have a button right next to the shutter button, which is a custom button, maybe custom 1 or custom 2, and that button is assigned to the picture profile menu. But again, you need to check if your camera is compatible with the picture profiles, if it has it. This may differ from one camera to another. If you don't have it assigned to that button, then you will have to search in the inner menu to access it. You can assign the picture profile menu to one of your many custom buttons for faster access, and I highly recommend that because it really does save you a lot of time and helps you with the creative flow whilst in the middle of a photo or video shoot. So after you have found the picture profile menu, let's enter it by hitting right on the dial wheel. And now that you're in the picture profile menu, you can either have 10 or 11 open slots where you can add your own custom film simulation settings and save them as they are. Unfortunately, we cannot name them for better recognition like Fuji, and that's one of the things that I would like to see in future models. I would like to be able to name my picture profiles, and not only for film simulations, but because they are 11 open slots, like open picture profiles, and I cannot remember all of them, like what picture profile I have at slot 1 or slot 2, like maybe if I haven't used this camera in a long time, maybe I forgot what I put in the first slot or the second one, and I just want to be able to name them. This is I don't know, Portra 800, or maybe this is S-Log2, S-Log3, this is Cine 4, whatever. I would just like to be able to customize that so I can easily identify each profile. Because right now what I have to do to check what gamma, what settings I've used, what picture profile, what film simulation this is I have to get inside each picture profile and check what settings I have. So that again is complicated, because if two profiles are very similar, then I will lose time or get confused and maybe just shoot with the wrong profile, because I just didn't have the time to really check what settings I had. So this is one thing that I would like to see in the future models. And another thing that I would like to see is, at the moment we cannot save a preset color for a preset color temperature for each individual picture profile. So you will need to set a different color settings each time you change the film simulation, because each has a slightly different color setting. This is not a deal breaker, because either way, when you shoot with film simulations, you will change your temperature according to your scene and according to the lighting that you have in the room or outside, But, it would be nice to be able to save, if you're the type of person that shoots only with custom setting temperature with individual picture profile, it will be nice to be able to save that, so you just dial in and it's ready to go, One thing that I would love to see in the future is maybe a new Sony line. I would love to see a camera that focuses more on analog aesthetics, design, and feeling, the feeling of the camera. A camera line that is for the artistic people, the creative community, giving the cameras a film-like design and features. Like I said, features like naming the film simulations. I also want full control over the individual color channels, including the hue, saturation, and luma, and to be able to do this in camera, to be able to create more in-depth profiles and enable Sony users to get even better colors straight out of the camera. Maybe they can call it the A7F or something like that. Let us know in the comments what you think about this idea and how you would name this camera line if it's possible. Maybe in time, if the community gets big enough, they will see the value around it and create a camera model that suits our needs. So to enter any picture profile and adjust it, hit right on the dial wheel or with the help of the joystick. And here you'll have all the options laid out, and all you have to do is just introduce all settings as presented on the website. And remember, you can go back and forth in the menu just by hitting right on the dial wheel and by pressing the menu button on the back of your camera to go back one page, if that made sense. Am I saying this properly? Like, do you understand what I'm talking about? So to enter any sub menu of the picture profile, just hit right. And if you want to go back one page, then hit the menu button on the back of your camera. Finally, it made sense. I gotta sit straight. Okay, so after I've finished introducing the settings for a favorite film simulation, let's get on with exposure and color. So what is important when shooting film simulations? Okay, first of all, exposure. How to expose is very important to get a film-like color out of the box. The human eye is attracted to areas with most saturation, contrast, and brightness. That's why exposure and light in general comes before color. Because you can have a scene with beautiful colors, but if it's shot in a dull, flat, cloudy day, then it won't look as good as it could have in the right conditions. And second most important is temperature and color filter. I'll show you how to use the Kelvin and color filter settings to enhance or focus more on different hues of the color spectrum. I've already posted multiple sample settings for each film simulation on the website to help you get it started, so go check them out, link in the description down below. But in order to understand how to achieve our desired color, we need to explain and understand a couple color grading techniques, and I will explain that later in the video. So this is the basic structure of today's video, so let me show you some practical examples. For the first part of the video, I will use the Cine Chrome film simulations because it has really nice colors and a high dynamic range. And later on, I will create a purposefully flawed profile with bad colors so I can show exactly how I would correct them inside the camera. Let's start with exposure. Exposure is a relative thing to talk about, if I can say that, because everybody will have a different perspective and different opinion on how you need to expose to get a good image. But finally, what I think is most important is to expose in such a way that it conveys the message and the story. So for example, a really popular blockbuster is Batman, and I'm giving this example because most of you will know what I'm talking about. And if you noticed, the last couple films are getting darker and darker, and some people might say that, Batman is a very dark movie. It's underexposed, it's not correctly exposed, like correctly exposed. But I think exposure in this case is matching and conveys the story really well, because it's a really dark story about somebody that's, fighting crime, and he's in Gotham City, which is a very dirty city filled with, criminals and all that shit I want to say, and all that stuff. So in this particular context, I think the exposure is spot on, because you're trying to show how dark everything is. A world of Batman is filled with depression, with sadness, with like struggle and just hardships. So just imagine how it will look like if you would overexpose by one stop or two stops, making it like super bright, soft contrast, super high dynamic range, and it will look very dreamy. You can include a couple scenes into Batman where everything is super bright, like memories of his parents and everything. But besides that, I think it would be a mistake to overexpose the scenes, because it's not conveying the message and the vision of the story. In comparison, if you do corporate work or, like food products, stuff like that, there you have to be very accurate, okay? You have to expose properly, and maybe you have to overexpose by half a stop, one stop, because the main goal of that video is to reach as many people and to be as friendly as possible, to be open, to be attractive. So when you do a corporate job, when you do a product, a food commercial, you're trying to make that product or that person as attractive as possible. So what you will do is make an image that is in general most attractive to most people, like the big masses. And what the big masses want is a bright image, a friendly image with poppy colors, pleasant colors. So you'll try to make something that is not too crazy, something that is widely accepted. And in that case, I think it would be suited to overexpose by maybe one stop, two stops, to make the image a little bit brighter, soft contrast, and just to make it a little bit more pleasing. As a conclusion, what I feel is important is that each element of your cinematography conveys the message or the mood of your vision. So it's all a matter of message and context, what you want to show, what emotions you want to reveal, and how you want the viewer to feel like related to your subject. Just like color grading, exposure has its influence in the story or the mood you're trying to convey. A general rule of thumb I can give you, which will work in most situations, is to expose for the subject, and the viewer eyes will follow. As I mentioned previously, the human eye is most attracted to the brightest, most vibrant and contrasty part of the image. So hide what is irrelevant in the shadows, because you don't want anything distracting the viewer from the subject. Expose for areas where you want people to look at, like the subject, like the person, the building, whatever, you need to properly expose that. And blow out highlights if they are distracting the viewer from the subject. This is a very general rule. The rest is a matter of taste and personal style. So take that with a grain of salt. That's how they say it. When showing your work on the internet, there will be a lot of critics, like people that will tell you like you didn't expose correctly, you exposed over, you're underexposed and stuff like that. And there will be many people that have no artistic taste. So if you have a different style which is not very popular or not very accepted, people will keep on will try to bring you down, like with meaningful comments like oh ho ho. We'll try to bring you down with hateful comments like this is shit, like you don't know what you're doing, like this is underexposed, like whatever, overexposed. In the end, I suggest you remain open to perspectives and criticism so you can learn more and just notice what you can improve to your photography. But in the same time, understand that maybe you have a different style from others, and maybe a new style that is still not widely accepted or popular, and people need to get used to it, or people just don't like it because most people are playing safe, and anything they do, they try to play safe because maybe they don't have a vision. And that's what I meant, like some people don't have the artistic vision, they cannot see what you see. So keep that in mind. Most people might find comfort in shooting safe because everybody will approve they have made a good photograph, and that is fine, but you don't have to take the same boring path. So the choice is yours. One more thing worth mentioning when it comes to exposure on Sony cameras: be aware of your camera screen brightness, because I noticed when my brightness is set to +2, which is the maximum, my footage on the back of my camera will look much brighter than it is in reality. So always check the histogram and the light meter to see if what you see on the back of your camera is what you will get on your computer. I would love if Sony would put better screens on their cameras, because they're leading in technology, and they have really good TVs and screens in general. So I don't really get it why they put these crappy screens which are not very accurate on their mirrorless cameras, probably to cut down cost. But I would rather like pay 100 euro more, or I don't know, even 200 euro more on a mirrorless camera, and to get a good screen, because that is very, very important. Since it's not a cinema camera, in many occasions you will use this camera without an external monitor which has accurate colors and all kind of different tools to measure exposures. So yeah, I just wish in newer and future Sony models a better screen so I can get accurate exposure, and so I can, you know, work with the screen and not against it. Now that we have cleared a basic understanding of exposure, let's get into color. So I made a couple color settings for each picture profile, and you can find them all on my website. As a basic, on the website you will find a Kelvin value like -1000 Kelvin, and the color filter setting to emphasize even more on different hues. And that will look like, let's say, A1, G1. So what does shooting 1000 Kelvin below normal temperature look like? Well, for example, if daytime you shoot usually sorry for that. So if daytime, usually you shoot 5500 Kelvin, which is, you know, like correct white balance. With this profile rated at -1000 Kelvin below normal temperature, you'll actually shoot 4500 Kelvin, and then you apply the color filter settings that follows, which will be A1, G1 in this scenario. So for a better understanding on how color works, I want to categorize color into two major groups, which is warm tones and cold tones. This will greatly simplify how you see color and make everything logical and have more sense when using the color settings to push the color spectrum in the right direction. Next, we need to understand how pushing temperature and the color filter in different direction will change color hues and emphasize on different tones. Okay, so remember what I mentioned about sectioning colors into two major groups? Think about that and don't worry about the rest for the moment. I will reveal everything during the video so you can watch it as many times as you need to. As a first, you need to decide if you want a warmer or a colder image. Based on that, you can gently start with minor adjustments, lowering the temperature by, let's say, -500 Kelvin. If you're more courageous, you can come with me and lower it down to -2000 Kelvin below normal. So again, what does normal temperature mean? Simple answer is correct white balance. So if you're not sure what is correct white balance in a scene, you can go into the temperature menu, and down the list will be custom menu setup or custom setup menu, where you can let the camera decide for yourself what is the correct white balance in the scene with the help of a gray card, of course. So if you don't have a gray card, don't worry. You can point at anything that should be gray in the real world and use that as a color reference. I have an application installed on my phone which is very helpful, and it's called Flashlight, which enables me to use custom colors on the screen. And that is very helpful in getting a custom color preset like a gray card, and also for photo shoots when I don't carry with me lights and I just want to quickly color paint the background or the model. After you created the custom white balance settings, you can save it as a preset. You have 3 slots open, so to save it as a preset you have to hit the OK button in the middle, or if you just want to use it as a reference, all you have to do to cancel the setting is to press the menu button. So one important thing to remember, because this is very helpful in many situations, by using this function, the camera will try to balance out colors in the scene by overcompensating the complementary color. So let's say you put an orange card in front of your camera and you hit OK. The camera will try to overcompensate the scene, the orange predominance in the scene, by pushing a lot of teal in the color spectrum. So then you can save it and use that as a Cinestill film simulation preset, and you will get really nice cold tones over the image. If you just started with Sony Film Simulations, or you're just unsure of what colors you want in your scene, maybe start by dialing in from the minimum Kelvin to the highest, and to see how the colors are being influenced and which color tones look more pleasing to you. Okay, so now that we have an image with predominant colors, what is next and how will this help me in achieving the look that I want? Well, that's simple. Let me explain this in DaVinci so I can show you exactly what's going on. So I have this clip into DaVinci, and as I drag down the temperature, you can see what is going on in the color warper. You can see how each hue is shifting towards a cooler tone. Red is becoming pink and green shift towards cyan. So you're actually shifting hues in a different direction, and you can correct skin tones just by playing with the color temperature, but this needs to be subtle. If the skin tone is too green or yellow, drag the temperature down by 500 to 1000 Kelvin, and you will notice how it will correct the skin tones, shifting them a little bit towards pink, making it look a little bit more pleasant. You can do that further with the help of the color filter by pushing it towards blue magenta. This will shift all the colors, including the greens, making it look more cyan and even more pleasing. So when creating color presets for Sony Film Simulations, you need to take into consideration what colors you have present in the scene and where you want to bring the whole color spectrum of the image to balance it accordingly. Now, let me show you how to correct the picture profile inside the camera. I prepared a purposefully flawed profile with bad colors so I can show exactly how I correct it. Let's check it out. After a quick analysis, I noticed the whole image is predominantly green and magenta. So there are a couple things you can do, and I will start with correcting the yellows. First, raise the color phase to shift hues. This will make the greens a little bit more yellow, the reds more magenta, and the blues more teal. And let's reduce saturation for a subtle look. Now let's finally adjust the exposure with the help of the ND filter. Next, I want to warm up the image while keeping a little bit of the blue magenta in the shadows. So one way of doing this is by bringing down the color filter to blue magenta, but that will make my image even cooler. So I need to counterbalance the overall temperature of the image with the Kelvin settings. So what I want to do is make sure the Kelvin is a little bit higher than I normally want it to, and then apply the color filter settings to blue magenta. Okay, it's already looking great. I just want to reduce the saturation even more to emphasize on a more nostalgic kind of a look, and change the color space from BT 2020 to Rec 709, so it renders more accurate greens and blues. Let's check the before and after. This is only one way you can go when correcting or creating picture profiles. There's so many color variations that can be created. It's only about understanding how each color influences one another. If you want a more in-depth video on how to create picture profiles, let me know in the comments. This is a very basic example which hopefully helps you understand the logic and the power of the picture profile menu. But we didn't even talk about the color differences of each color mode, differences in gammas, how you can influence the shadows with the black point and black gamma settings, or the color depth menu. There's a lot to be said about this menu, and there's a lot of color theory going on behind, which is helping me create these Sony film simulations. If you also like to learn more about color theory or color grading, you can book a color grading course with me, or just use the settings provided in the Sony Film Simulation plan if you just want great colors without any hassle. Maybe in the same time, pay attention how these settings will influence the other colors in the scene to make sure everything falls right into place. Okay, different scenario. Let's say your blues are too magenta. Inside the picture profile menu, bring up the color phase to +4. Now the blues will be corrected, but the skin tones might be a little bit too pink. Go into the color menu and set the temperature by 200 to 500 Kelvin higher, and in the color filter bring it up towards amber and green just by a tad. Let's say A1, G1. By adding amber and green to the scene, you brought the skin tones a little bit more towards orange and the blues more towards green. So you fixed two problems out of one shot. My recommendation is to start gentle, and in time, in-camera color grading will become second nature. Nowadays, I set the temperature and the color filter right on the spot from the top of my head, and I always analyze the colors present in the scene and edit the film simulations depending on how I would like them to look like. To be mentioned that for color accuracy, when using some film simulations like Kodak 64, we need to respect the dedicated settings to emulate the accurate colors of the film stock. Meaning, if you want to get Kodak 64 to look like the real deal, I recommend trying out the settings on the website. If accuracy is not that important and you want to experiment with different hues, but you really like the base contrast and colors of Kodak 64, then you are free to do so. Nobody's stopping you. I recommend playing around with these settings and color filters to understand how it affects your color in the scene, and so you can create new picture profiles which you can share with others. One more thing I want to mention is that on the website we have a forum where you can ask any kind of questions about Sony Film Simulations. You can post your own recipes, your own work, or just connect with other members passionate about film look, analog, colors, and such. You can find all film simulations and color settings on my website, link in the description down below. So this is pretty much all I wanted to show you when it comes to Sony Film Simulations, how to use them, how to expose them, what does the color filter settings mean, or how to use the temperature to influence the overall tone of the image. Hopefully this cleared up some questions and makes it easier for you to use the Sony Film Simulation settings. Let us know in the comments if you have any other questions, or what do you think about the new Sony analog line? Do you think this is possible? What features would you like to see in it, and how would you name it? Let us know what you think about this idea, and thanks for watching. Till next time, take care, and remember, have fun. See ya.